For all of the talk of UFC fighters mostly being underpaid, competing in the main events in the octagon is actually a great way to make a ridiculous amount of money. Whether possibly getting injuries or having your limbs ripped off is worthwhile in a trade-off, to get to that point is an entirely different story, but neither here nor there. The UFC, of course, is the most prominent mixed martial arts organization in the world. Since the company has evolved into a multi-billion-dollar enterprise, the fighters' salaries have also dramatically increased at the top level. To put things in perspective, Royce Gracie made only $50,000 after going through 3 hellish rounds in the inaugural UFC tournament. That's just the performance bonus pay by today's standards. It goes without saying that the most prominent fighters in the UFC are also with the largest bank accounts. With that in mind, let's take a peek at the Octagon's richest as we list the 5 richest MMA fighters of all time. Number 5, BJ Penn. Younger UFC fans may not be too familiar with BJ Penn's work. For them, he's probably just a guy who has an MMA website named after him. But during his heyday, Penn was an absolute beast, living up to his nickname as the Prodigy, outclassed several challengers during his 2-year reign as the UFC lightweight champ. Penn also did some incredible work in the welterweight division. The Hawaii native will be remembered for his classic bouts against 170-pound greats Matt Hughes and George St Pierre. One of the most notable figures in the sport, Penn is also among the wealthiest. According to multiple sources, Penn has a net worth of $22 million, and according to Ultimate Fighting Network, most of his wealth is from his fight pay during his 8-year UFC run. Number 4, Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar was the UFC's biggest draw in the pre-Conor McGregor era. With that in mind, it isn't very surprising that he's on this list of the richest MMA fighters of all time. Lesnar is not just a prominent figure in the world of mixed martial arts, he's also one of the biggest superstars in the WWE, where he's one of the highest paid professional wrestlers, on top of his career as one of the biggest draws on selling pay-per-views in UFC history. It's safe to say that Lesnar is sitting on a proverbial pot of gold. The former UFC champion reportedly boasts a net worth of $25 million. With that amount of money, there's no doubt that Lesnar's contributions to pro wrestling and MMA were compensated very well. Number 3, George St Pierre. Welterweight legend George St Pierre is arguably the greatest UFC fighter of all time. During his time at the top, the French-Canadian ruled with an iron fist, as he had never really lost control of the welterweight division. Except for that one time Matt Serra surprised him with a lucky punch, and he held on to the belt for a brief while, but even GSP was able to get that win back. Unlike his contemporaries, we never really saw GSP go through a sad decline phase, as he left the sport at the peak of his powers. GSP retired in 2013, briefly resurfaced in 2017 to claim the UFC middleweight title. After that, Rush left the sport completely with his legacy intact and a few more dollars in his pocket. Such a boss move. Throughout his 13-year UFC career, GSP amassed a net worth a whopping $30 million. After subjecting his body to years and years of punishment for our entertainment, I think we can agree that St Pierre deserves everything he's made, and maybe even more. Number 2, Khabib Nurmagomedov. Khabib's name often comes up during the greatest of all time discussions, but the richest of all time? Who would have known? The Russian fighter has displayed nothing but modesty, even when he was the world champ. Unlike his fellow superstars, Khabib has always chosen to live a simple lifestyle that fits his mild-mannered, humble nature. Leaving the sport with a perfect record of 29-0, Khabib has earned a very hefty retirement fund. According to reports, the Eagle is worth $40 million, making him the second richest UFC fighter of all time. UFC president Dana White also went on the record to say that one of the reasons he can't convince him to come back and return to fight is because, quote, he doesn't need the money. 1. The notorious Conor McGregor. McGregor is the richest MMA fighter of all time, and it's not even close. Not only that, but he also landed on top of Forbes' list of the highest paid athletes in 2021, ahead of global icons like Ronaldo, Messi, and LeBron James. According to reports, the Irishman has a net worth of a whopping $400 million. An astounding feat when you actually consider he's rarely competed over the last few years. Believe it or not, though, only a fraction of McGregor's wealth actually came from fighting in the UFC octagon. It was the Irishman's business acumen that brought him to the top of the list. Earlier this year, McGregor reportedly sold a major stake in his whiskey company, Proper Number 12, a deal that netted him a whopping $158 million. McGregor's rags to riches story is one of the most inspirational tales in the history of the UFC for sure. However, a huge segment of fans also believe McGregor's success and comfort are to blame for his recent struggles. To quote heavyweight boxing legend Marvin Hagler, "It's tough to get out of bed to do road work at 5 a.m. when you've been sleeping in silk pajamas." But if you tell the Notorious One that, he'll probably punch you in the mouth.